Hey guys, Dov here, back with another unit highlight. Today we're talking about a core essential unit for just about every Skaven build. What's up, dude? You got a stomach cramp right there? What is he clutching his side for? Anyway, Rat Ogres, of course. Of course, Rat Ogres, one of the few high-mass, fast-moving units you have as the Skaven. So let's take a look here. This is from the session of myself and Romulan Dog. Romulan Dog taking the Skaven here. I've taken the High Elves. He's got four Rat Ogres, Ikit Claw plus a Hell Pit Abomination, tons of chaff, and the Ix's Triads. Myself decided to try out a bit of an experimental build. This is basically the I don't like weapons teams build. I got four Surtha Chariots, Surtha Bell Kek, or whatever her name is, Belchek, or in campaign. Yeah, I've got three of those. Archmage on a chariot here, Lore of Fire, 4 Illyrian Reavers, Heralds of the Wind, and the Grey to try and snipe, get in there and snipe some units. Just a couple of Rangers and Silver and Guard for infantry, so relatively thin. And yes, so why are Rat Ogres essential? Well, obviously this is the answer right here, chariots. For those of you guys who saw, I recently put up a game about Goblin Wolf chariots. Definitely recommend you check that out if you haven't seen it. That stream had that game happen on a live stream, so you might have seen it already there. But yeah, basically the entire Skaven army got rolled by, not by wolf chariots explicitly, whoops, but yeah, they had some problems because they didn't have any mass to stop chariots, and of course, Skaven have lots of squishy, fluffy little rat boys that don't weigh very much and get absolutely wrecked by chariots. So having the Rat Ogres to stop their mass, super essential here. Already I'm running into problems. I was trying to get in here and start to take out some of these Rat Ogres with my my Illyrian Reavers, but Ikit did a great job there with his magic and support, blasting my units, and yeah, just getting screened out by these gutter runners here. I'm trying to use the Grey and the Reaver Archers to go after those Rat Ogres, but honestly, after having lost a pretty decent amount already, I'm going to have a hard time keeping these Tirnoch Chariots online. And if I could, like, get away and focus their missile damage on the Rat Ogres, over time I could probably do some damage to them, but I really don't have time. Yeah, the Rat Ogres and this Death Squad just absolutely rolling through the few infantry I had, having a hard time operating, and all of this basically comes back to the Rat Ogres, right? If they're not here, none of this is possible, because my chariots are going to be running all over the place, and the Skaven, you know, Ikit and the Abomination would then have to be responding to the chariots. As it is, they can go on the offensive, while the, chariots are still able to roll up some over here. I'm trying to regroup them and start to kind of break up these units, kind of roll up the side here, but Romulan Dog's on point with his Rat Ogres. You can see in the distance Archmage Chariot getting chased by Ikit. Ooh, Chariot goes down there, and that's the name of the game with Rat Ogres. Not only chariots, of course, but heavy cavalry and lighter monsters as well. They can sometimes hold back depending on the type of monster. Other monsters, infantry. Just in general, they are your multi-unit high mass. You do have some single entity high mass units, but largely that's it for mobile high-mass units, so you've got to use them for a multitude of purposes, and they are pretty squishy, pretty low defensive stats. If you guys remember my Dragon Ogre video, remember those guys have really nice melee defense and attack here, though everything is lower basically, except for the charge bonus. Actually, they have a really good charge bonus. It is kind of their, they are very much kind of shock, almost like shock cavalry. You could almost even call them, I know I said Minotaurs were in the kind of monstrous cavalry / infantry class. I guess Rat Ogres are as well, and they also can get knocked over just like Minotaurs can. But they're just cheaper than both of the units I am referring to, right? Dragon Ogres and Minotaurs both significantly more expensive than Rat Ogres. At only 800 points, they can be very cost effective in a multitude of situations. They do get wrecked, though, pretty hard by things like open field charges, effective, cheap, high DPS skirmishers like Pistoliers. Stuff like that can be very dangerous to them, and they don't even really like fighting low-tier spears very much, or even quote-unquote DPS infantry. If they get a good engagement, can do a lot of damage to Rat Ogres. Something like, I don't know, they probably wreck Forsaken just because Forsaken have such low HP, but maybe something like Marauders even, Marauder Berserkers have high enough weapon strength and high enough attack that they'll just do a lot of damage straight up. Something like rat ogres, but using them in mobile engagements, supporting them like with spears especially. The Ixchus Triads is a great support unit as well. The Clan Eshin units tend to be even faster than the regular Skaven units. You can see 47 speed even with the, what is that, strength in numbers there. So, interesting stuff. Doom Wheels, of course, can be mobile terror. Using Hell Pit Abominations with them is a little bit clunky because Hell Pits are too slow. But at this point, I mean, the battle is more or less decided. I mean, it was basically decided on the builds, right? And I will say for myself, Romulan Dog agreed, this build is pretty weak. Don't have any terror for one thing. Don't really have enough bodies either to fight Skaven properly, like as we saw. But yeah, I also didn't really have the tools to deal with Rat Ogres to help my chariots operate. Like, I figured he might bring, you know, 2 maybe I could deal with. 3 would be tricky, but 4 definitely not. And especially with Ikit plus a Hell Pit, this is just way too much large, and my build lacking very much in anti-large other than these 2 Silverin Guard, which just got absolutely rolled up anyway and didn't do anything. So, well played, Romulan Dog. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. I had a few units, and the Tirnoch Chariots and stuff still ended up getting a decent amount of kills against the Chaff, but just largely getting directly countered here by the Rat Ogres, Hell Pit Abomination as well, just eating up a lot of resources in terms of arrows. And this is a topic I plan on covering at a later date, but Illyrian Reavers and Shadow Warriors already are some of the least cost-effective units if you measure by like gold per ammunition, like the total damage that the unit could expend. Theoretically, if you use all models' ammunition, they pay more like per shot than most other units in the game. Because they have decent quote-unquote melee stats, they end up paying a lot extra, and I mean, the base units are already not great, so then you add the Regiment of Renown status on top of that, and they very rarely will pay for themselves with their missiles, and as a result, you are going to have to use that melee capability, even though in practice they are still super squishy, especially against high charge units like Rat Ogres. And just in general because they have pretty low HP, but back to Rat Ogres themselves, very, very key unit for the Skaven, of course. Basically every matchup, except maybe Vampire Coast. Even then, though, you probably still want at least 1 or 2 to try and pin Harkon if he comes down to the ground. Yeah. You guys let me know what you think down in the comments below about that specific matchup, but in almost every matchup you're definitely going to want, and certainly any matchup where your opponent can bring chariots or heavy cavalry, you're going to want Rat Ogres, and I usually go with at least 2. 3 to 4 is actually much better. 2 is kind of risking it a little bit, and you better have like some grinders and other units to help control the battle space, but having 4 Rat Ogres gives you quite a bit of mass, and you can kind of use them like 2 and 2 on each flank. You can all group them up all on one flank and just go heavy. If your opponent, you know, has a weak center, then you could potentially, you know, just throw Chaff out to the flanks to tie up their mobility and punch through the center. A lot of different stuff you can do with them, particularly supporting them with an Overcast Death Frenzy. Death Frenzy normally only hits 1 unit, but if you overcast it, 12 Winds of Magic, you can hit all 4 of them in a blob, or like if there's maybe like 2 plus a Doom Wheel plus a couple of Chaff supporting units, getting that extra AoE melee attack makes them punch even harder. The melee attack, even with the Frenzy, is not amazing, but that charge bonus is really strong, so definitely want to use them in almost like a shock cavalry, in cycle charging them in and out, not leaving them in prolonged combat for too long, again, against things like low-tier spears, even like high DPS infantry. In most engagements in general, you want to try and, you know, hit and run with them, but oftentimes in a I guess high mass engagement, they have to stay committed in order to protect, like, let's say a couple of weapons teams or an artillery piece. So keep that in mind. In terms of giving them extra defensive stats, here you've also got the Eshin Sorcerer. What is it? The Armor of Darkness, only usable on 1 unit. Yeah, and then if you overcast it, it does give an effect range as well. So similar to the Death Frenzy, you can overcast this for some extra defensive stats, and it'll put them up to 80 armor, which is pretty decent, and also give them some missile resistance as well, which is nice given their kind of lack of defensive stats. They do have a lot less HP than something like Dragon Ogres. Obviously, Dragon Ogres, I think, have the most HP, maybe, of any monstrous, quote-unquote, monstrous infantry, any of these 12 model count units. I'd have to double-check that, but, yeah, but again, much, much cheaper, very cost-effective. And the other things, too, to consider, the Eshin characters, as I mentioned, Eshin units pretty fast. Something like Master Assassin, Death Master, and the regular Assassin can almost keep up with them, especially if they have the Slippery active, but they're only 6 speed slower, so you can kind of use them in support of each other. The wheels, 44 speed is maybe a little bit too slow for the cart. The Doom wheels themselves, though, of course, are actually faster than the Rat Ogres, so gotta be careful not to outrun your support there. But that's basically it in terms of Rat Ogres. Probably rambled on for a bit long on this one, but hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification every time I upload a new video. You'll be notified. Thanks again, and we'll see you next time.